The mission of the Inattentive ADHD Coalition is to ensure that children with inattentive ADHD are diagnosed by the age of 8 and that adults with inattentive ADHD receive prompt and accurate diagnosis when seeking help. To learn more about our mission and how you can help, visit iadhd.org.
Hello, I'm Catherine Ellison. I'm a journalist and author of books including the family ADHD memoir, Buzz, A Year of Paying Attention. And here I am today with Ariyanna White, who is a licensed clinical social worker in Atlanta, Georgia. And Ariyanna, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah. So my name's Ariana. My pronouns are she, they. Like you mentioned, I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. I work full time as Associate Director of Case Management at KSU, coordinating their support for special populations, and part time at private practice.
Fantastic. Well, start out like we always start out, and I'd like to know when you were diagnosed with inattentive ADHD.
I was diagnosed about 2 years ago.
Three.
I'm 30.
Okay, so
Yeah.
28. Uh-huh.
Yeah. And
And
27 is when I was like, something's not feeling right, but it took a year.
you only started feeling like something's not feeling right at age 27?
I wouldn't say that's completely true. I would say that people started telling me something wasn't right and that life didn't have to be this hard.
Looking back on when you were in school, do you think that your ADHD was affecting you back then?
Yeah, I think I've always been a really good student, but looking back, I think very specifically about this time I went to private school. We were combined classes and it was second and third grade. I came home telling my mom about both of the lessons and she was like, "Oh no. Like you're not here to teach second graders while you're in third grade." But anytime we had downtime, she was teaching this other class and that's all I could focus on.
Oh my goodness. But
Yeah.
that was the only symptom? Was school easy for you, for example?
School was easy for me, but I think that's largely because I was also very anxious. I was afraid to get in trouble and afraid to not do things right. My systems have always had systems. If I got home, I knew there was not a chance of getting schoolwork done because I couldn't focus there. I'm doing homework in classes, making
Well,
sure that
again, looking
everything
back,
gets done.
yeah, for a lot of people, anxiety is something that comes with ADHD. When you look back, do you think that it might have been related?
Yeah, I think so because I can remember when I was really young getting in trouble for forgetting where things were or not paying attention to little details. Then I became really good at doing those things.
Maybe that led to your interest in treating anxiety now, because you can have a lot of compassion for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Looking back, were there any things that maybe your teachers could have seen that could have helped you get diagnosed earlier?
I think that's a good question. I'm trying to think about what would be something that they would notice because I learned really young, like not to ask for help and not to be seen. I was someone who talked a lot and asked a lot of questions or always had the answer. I got a lot of negative feedback for it throughout school. I mostly taught myself things and figured it out through family and friends. I tried to interact with teachers as little as possible.
But initially, that's so interesting. Initially, talking a lot. Do you think that your teachers might have seen that you were asking a lot of questions because maybe you were confused or trying to figure things out?
I think it was mostly seen as that at first I was excited about school. And then somewhere along the line, it was taken as I was showing off or trying to be smarter than other people.
Wow, interesting. But was that a symptom of, in any way, of ADHD, or do you think that you manifested anything that was a symptom early on that might have
I,
been?
I,
Yeah.
I do think that talking a lot or being engaged in two classes at once, and I'm always trying to do three things at once. I was a kid who would get in trouble for reading a book in class while also being able to listen what the teacher was saying. But I think because they're all of the things just make me seem more smart, that it wouldn't have ever been something that teachers were, "Oh, maybe you should get tested for."
That's so interesting. But did you develop coping strategies for those symptoms later on? Or maybe they're a strength for you now. It seems like it could be
Yeah.
multitasking.
Yeah, I think I definitely what made me notice the difference is that once I wasn't so anxious and worried about getting in trouble, a lot of the systems that I developed weren't as important to me anymore. I would start my day with a planner and here are the things that I have to get done, very much like a checklist person and really not having compassion for myself if I didn't get those things done. This started really young. I would say by like second grade, my mom was very much, you don't need my help because you're harder on yourself than I am. You're very organized. I'd be the kid who was like, you gave us homework. Are you going to collect it? Because I wrote it down.
It sounds like your parents, or your mom at least, was pretty supportive, but your teachers were not.
Yeah. My mom has always been really supportive and just, what do you need? Because the world's not made for you. So we have to make sure that we're supporting each other. I think it was helpful, but also made me very anxious
Right.
because you feel so fortunate. And then you're like, I have to deserve this and I have to be perfect. And
So is that where the anxiety came from mostly for you? That feeling that you had to deserve I don't know, the private school?
I think honestly, growing up as a Black woman, you grow up feeling like you have to deserve to exist, right? I didn't go to private school my whole life. I think I went until second and third grade when that happened. And my mom was like, I'm not going to pay extra when they're not actually like teaching you.
So you
So,
felt a lot of pressure, it sounds like, when you were a kid.
oh yeah, my whole life was pressure.
There's the anxiety that comes from pressure and the anxiety that comes from feeling out of control or feeling like you're screwing up, right? And maybe for you, it was more the former and less the latter related to ADHD. Maybe it
I
was
mean, I
more
think
environmental.
it becomes a little bit of both, right? I can't control that I'm Black. I can't control that I'm a woman. There's these expectations put on me, right? There are very few like Black peers I know who haven't heard the you got to be twice as better than your peers to get half the recognition. And you learn that so young, whether it was like ADHD or not. It was like, I can't fail
Right.
because then I'll look bad. You have to set an example. I don't want to be the one who's like the statistic or what people expect of you.
I definitely felt that as a woman. I guess you've got the double whammy. Yeah.
For sure.
In the Black community, is ADHD, or was it in your community recognized, or how is it seen by your parents?
My mom, funny enough, is a special ed teacher. So I don't think that it was negatively viewed, but I think because she was always dealing with so many kids who were much more severe than I was, it never even crossed her mind that was a thing. It gave her this perspective of just let her be who she is and let her be a kid. Some of that is ADHD symptoms, actually. My mom was just going along with whatever I needed.
Do
I'm
you
sorry.
talk about that now with her?
Oh,
Do you
all the time. My mom's my
Yeah.
best friend. So I was like, how did you not see this?
And what does she say?
She always says, you were always just quirky. I just went along with who you were and tried to support you with who you were as a person.
Do you wish that you'd been diagnosed? Do you think it would have made a huge difference if you'd been diagnosed as a child?
I think it would have been helpful in just providing more compassion for myself earlier on because with ADHD, some of the things you don't realize. For example, I'm late everywhere. If I say I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be 30 minutes late habitually. All my friends know that. And it starts to feel like, why am I just not good enough at this? What is wrong with me that I can't be here on time? I wake up an hour earlier. I schedule things. I plan it out and I'm still messing up. Just realizing that, oh, I need systems that work for me would have been
These are
better earlier
these
on.
are issues that you still have. You're still late even after being diagnosed.
Yeah. But I think now I can tell people like 8 is the lie that I'm telling both of us, but 8:30 is when you need to be there by.
Or just have people tell you 7:30 when they mean 8, right?
Right.
You have siblings?
I'm just only child.
So maybe there was extra pressure put on you because of that?
I think being an only child is what really let my mom let me be me because
She couldn't compare you to an
right.
Yeah.
I joke with my mom all the time. I'm pretty sure you have some neurodiversity in you as well. It wasn't abnormal to her because she does a lot of these same things that I do, like not managing her time well or like struggling with like executive functioning type stuff. So it was okay. This is just the way our house looks.
Maybe that's one of the reasons why she didn't see it as abnormal in you, some of these things. What kind of treatment did you get, or what are your strategies now that you learned?
My husband's actually really helpful with a lot of strategies and structure because I still can get stuck in that loop, right? Excuse me. I went through grad school before I got diagnosed, and I really didn't have a hard time with performance until I got in my professional career.
Why do you
Uh,
think that is?
I think there was a lot of structure in
Huh.
undergrad and grad school. I've always had at least one job and then a second job. that had very specific structure to it, right? As an intern, you got to be there 8 to 5 and someone else makes your schedule and you just have to show up for it.
Right.
So the freedom of being out of school and developing my own career was really hard to manage for me.
How does your husband help you?
So one thing I think that is the most helpful is he reminds me to take my medication. Uh,
Ah, okay. That's another topic we have to explore, yeah.
honestly, he's the person who told me, I don't think this is just your anxiety. I think you should talk to your doctor and tell them that these are the issues that you're having. You're forgetting things. You're used to being able to pay attention to detail or remember what people told you, but you're not anymore, especially since you started taking like anxiety and antidepressants. There's a shift in like how you're interacting with me. There's a shift in even the speed in which you're talking. I think you should talk to your psychiatrist more about these things.
Wow, so you were diagnosed with anxiety first or depression?
I was diagnosed with depression first and then anxiety. My psychiatrist was like, well, you have to make sure your anxiety is managed because the symptoms can look like ADHD and we don't want to like misdiagnose you. That's why it took a year of figuring out what was right for anxiety and depression. Then finally, I started ADHD medication, which I'm still figuring out what works for me.
As we all are. Wait, let me get this straight. At age 28, you finally felt that something was wrong, and that's when you started seeing a psychiatrist, or had you been seeing a psychiatrist maybe as part of your training before?
So 27 is when I started seeing a psychiatrist for depression, anxiety. And then 28 is when I finally got the diagnosis of ADHD because she was like, oh, like your anxiety does seem managed, like your depression seems managed. Let's see if starting ADHD medication helps.
And has it helped you, or how much has it helped you? Yeah.
So I was taking Adderall for about a year, and that was extremely helpful. But what I couldn't manage is seeing clients. There'd be a drop around 2 or 3 o'clock where I'm going to fall asleep on these people because the withdrawal symptoms are so bad. And I still struggle with taking it if my routine is disrupted or I leave it at home.
Yeah.
I recently started taking Ritalin instead. That doesn't have as many withdrawal symptoms, but doesn't help me as much as I think the Adderall did.
Besides medication, are there other strategies that you use?
Yeah, I have one of those electronic notebooks,
Uh-huh.
and that has been really helpful because you can download like PDF calendars and you can keep
Ah,
notes in it. I keep that with me in my backpack everywhere. Anytime I need to remember something, I can write it down in this notebook, right? Previously, I got sticky notes everywhere. Even now, they're all over the room, but now I can be, oh, okay, I wrote this on a sticky note. I'm going to put it in this electronic notebook so everything is in the same place. I've also started having more structure in my day that I've just created and think works best for me. I have 2 jobs, so you got to flex
yeah.
around a lot of things.
Can you
But
explain this? Sorry, Ariana, can you explain a little more about what an electronic notebook is? I've never heard of that actually.
yeah, the one that I have is called Oracle Remarkable. The nice thing about it is it doesn't have the blue light of a phone or a computer. It feels like paper when you're writing on it. So you have an actual like pen and you can write in your own handwriting and it can transcribe things to a Word document for your computer later.
Cool. Yeah.
Changed my life.
We're talking about you as somebody coping with these problems, but you're also helping people. What percent of the people that you see have ADHD?
I couldn't say specifically to ADHD because I joke with my clients that a lot of them have the 1-2 punch of autism and ADHD, and it's hard to like suss out which is which. At my full-time job, I would say it's about 70% because that's my unique role in supporting students who are struggling with mental health, neurodiversity, and the transition to college. And then in private practice, I'd say maybe like 50 just because that's who I think connects with me the most. We understand like the same strategies. I've been trying my best. My partner wants me to put away the dishes, and I tried. I started, but then I saw that the broom was in the wrong place. The cat needed to be fed, and I never made it back to the dishes.
Yeah, that happens a lot.
Yeah.
So wait, in at school, at the university or the college that you work with, the students just drop in, or how does that work?
I work in the counseling center at the university, but we have something called the Accessibility Collaboration Team. What that looks like is you get referrals from professors, faculty, staff, And even parents sometimes will reach out to the counseling center and say that, hey, my student had an IEP in high school or they had a 504 plan, and we want them to have extra support through that program. They're connected with the counseling center as well as our student disability services and then our career center to provide the holistic support. We help them with like academic coaching, how to plan your schedule, how to organize your email, and also just how to make relationships. A lot of our students come with a lot of shame, similar to what I was talking about earlier. And just like, how do you communicate your needs and how to get people to support you in the ways that you need?
And how do you help them with the shame? What are some of the things that you tell them?
My treatment modality that I use the most is called acceptance and commitment therapy.
Mhm.
A lot of that is based in how do we accept who we are as a person and not good or bad, but this is just what I look like. Then we work through that, right? I know that I'm not going to be on time to things. How do I offer myself time and grace and not put myself in a situation where I'm going to end up in a shame cycle? Asking for what you need can really help mediate a lot of the shame that you feel later. I also talk to my clients and also myself a lot about just self compassion, right? Kristen Neff has great work on self compassion, and we talk about just being human, and being human means not being perfect. I think because like I share a lot of the identities of my client, it's easier to help them find that place of we're both having this experience together and we both still deserve kindness and patience. And what do we need to get us there? Right? How do we separate like our mom's voice telling us that our room's not clean enough or our teacher's voice telling us that we're not quiet enough from how we actually feel about who we are as a person?
That's wonderful. It sounds like you have a supportive husband too, or has ADHD been an issue with him?
He has always been really supportive, but he has autism.
Oh.
So we can bump heads a lot just in those expectations. He likes clean space. He likes things to be ordered and structured and know what to expect. I'm all over the place. We joke sometimes that our room looks like the room from the Wednesday Netflix show where like I'm all rainbows and color and mess and he's got black and it's all organized and neat in its place.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful.
I think to the question, what has helped though is us understanding more about how ADHD affects us and the decisions I make. So he can be, okay, this is Ariana's ADHD.
Wonderful. That's so cool. So he's managing himself. So yeah, that's wonderful. Did you get together with your husband before you both were diagnosed?
Yes, it's funny because when I first started dating him, I was just joking, like, friend, have you been diagnosed with autism before? He had never even thought about it. It wasn't really something that was popular where he grew up as far as testing for kids in general. He went and got tested and he was like, oh, I'm autistic for real.
Wow.
And we were together 2 years. And then after I graduated from grad school, and he was like, there's something going on with you. And I think you should go get it checked out.
Wow. Vice versa. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've often thought that people with ADHD may gravitate towards people with OCD or autism just because they need somebody who's in charge of the details, but then you can clash quite a lot. It sounds like you're handling that pretty well. Yeah,
We complete each other. We're full people, but our strengths and our weaknesses really align well.
that's really lovely. Yeah. So you deal with body positivity as well. Is there a connection there with ADHD at all?
So there's actually been a lot of, it's not as much my specialty, but I've been learning a lot about how ADHD and eating can be related. It wasn't even something I was aware of until my husband pointed it out. How often I just forget to eat. And then I'll get to the end of the day and I'm eating these huge meals because I've forgotten all day. Then I'm feeling bad because I'm eating so much and I haven't been taking care of myself all day. I think the whole process for me has been how do I get more in tune with my body and what I need and just how I'm interacting with the world? How can I be happy with my body and what I need, right? If I need to take a break every 2 hours to have a snack, I don't end up overeating at the end of the day. That's what I need to be aware of and how I need to structure my day. I didn't realize with eating disorder work, I've been following a lot of nutritionists who specialize in just working with people with ADHD, right? How do you deal with these negative thoughts about your body and address that you're going to forget to eat? You can't use that as an excuse. your eating disorder voice is separate from your ADHD voice.
Ariyanna, you also have a specialty in dealing with sexual issues, and I wondered if that has a relationship with ADHD that you've seen.
That has been my favorite thing to talk about with people. Part of the reason I got into sex therapy is that people assigned female at birth, women learn to be a passive participant in sex. Working with folks with ADHD, they'll come in and they're like, I don't like the sexual interaction with my partner. I'm like, have you considered your sensory issues, friend? Sex can be so sticky and you're expected to do all of these things when you hear the fan, you hear the sex noises, you're sweating. It can be so overwhelming. Then you have the shame associated with that you can't be present. It's exciting for me working with people to see them put the pieces together about I'm not broken, I'm just not addressing the things that my body needs.
Wow.
And once I do that, sex can be so much fun and be such a pleasurable experience where I don't have to be a starfish the whole time.
Oh, starfish. And what is the key to that? Is it treating the ADHD? Is it medication? How do you block out all those sounds and feelings if you need to?
It really depends on the person, right? Something as easy as we need to turn off the light or we need to get a different fan. That's about communication, right? You don't have to be forced in this situation because you always do it with the lights on. Okay, turn on a lamp, right? There's small changes and there's also the bigger changes that we talk more about in therapy about how do you be more mindful and how do you be more present in your body and feel okay with that, right? Some of that is sensory issues and some of that is they've learned to dissociate through the experience because they've never had an experience that's pleasurable for them. It's communication, it's building a new relationship with your body. There's some things you're just not going to.
I want you to be my therapist. It sounds like you get a lot of fulfillment out of what you do. I'm wondering if you could go back and be your own therapist and get a message to the kid who was turning off from school because you felt shame and anxiety. What would you say?
I've actually thought about this a lot. As a therapist, they talk about inner child work and reparenting yourself. I would have told my younger self that there's always going to be a reason that someone doesn't like you or someone's not celebrating you for who you are. Choose to be you, right? When you go to bed at night, if you made a mistake or something didn't go right, what's the version of you that you're going to be proud of?
That's beautiful. Yeah. What's the worst mistake you've ever made? It's like a job interview, right?
Yeah. But you think about an ADHD mistake. It's so funny because I haven't thought about this in years, but I was about 7 or 8 years old and my aunt asked me to take her to the store. I got distracted while she asked, I was giving her directions. So she made one wrong turn and we ended up an hour away from where we were supposed to be. It
For
was like
seven?
the worst mistake. Yeah.
That's a lot of responsibility for a 7-year-old.
It's funny you say that, and it's funny just talking to people. I hear that a lot. Oh, you had a lot of responsibility as a kid, or even when I was a kid, you're so mature for your age. It doesn't feel like that for you. That's your norm. That's what you're
Right.
used to. But one distraction, and we were 2 counties over.
And that's the one you remember. That's so interesting because I could tell you so many that in my life that are fresher and worse.
I think now, because I've learned to have more compassion for myself, right? I remember being younger, I'm sitting in these cycles thinking about what I've done wrong and how I should have done it differently. And now I'm just like, it is what it is.
You do seem very wise for your age now.
Thank you.
When you're teaching the people that you see to reparent themselves, what kinds of things help with that?
I don't think that adults play enough, whether that's board games or video games. Just be silly. A lot of the kids, or not kids, but a lot of the young adults I see, they've been being an adult way longer than they realize. They have all of these things in their head about, I can't do this, or I'm too mature to be doing this. It can be so freeing to just be like, I'm going to go for a picnic and go blow bubbles for no reason.
Do you do that? What kinds of things do you do like that in your life?
It's surprising. I somehow make time. I play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and role playing games. I started at the college I work at. We play Dungeons and Dragons for social anxiety, to get students to be silly and play pretend. Games are a big one for me. My friends, they love a themed party for whatever reason. We've had like fairy picnics, we've had pajama parties.
Oh, well,
Let's just do sleepovers like we were kids. Sleepovers now are much more fun because thinking about sleepovers as a kid, I was overstimulated. I'd get irritable. I made it through the night once as a kid without calling my mom. But now I can be, okay, friends, I like to go to bed by 10. We don't need loud music after this time. I'm probably going to get overstimulated. I'm going to go take 10 and I'll see you in a minute. Sleepovers have actually been fun as an adult because I'm like, these are my friends. I'm not going to hold myself to these obligations that I have to play games that I don't like or listen to music too loud. They accept me as I am and we have fun without all of those things.
That sounds great. So the reparenting means that you go back and experience the childhood like it should have been?
Yeah, I guess for some people it depends, right? What is the experience you wanted as a kid because of the marginal identities I hold? There's many times that I haven't been able to be a kid. That play portion is so important for me. But for other people, it could just be like that voice in your head that says it's okay to mess up. This is a learning opportunity. I'm going to be big. I'm going to be brave. I'm not going to judge myself for it like my mom did. It's really about what's the compassion, what's the support you wish that you had when you were younger.
When you look back, how do you think your life would be different if you had been diagnosed early on?
I think part of the journey that I've been on with self-compassion is that it's hard to think about that past self and be like things would be better or things would be worse because I've come to be so happy with where I am. This is the journey. This is how I got here and I'm really good now. But I think there's small things that can come up sometimes, right? If I was diagnosed younger, I probably would have went to a bigger school or a quote unquote more prestigious school. So I
Hmm.
probably wouldn't have been so anxious and I probably would have done better in school because I wasn't using so much energy to mask all the time. I think of things like that, but it's hard to say. Right? I'm so happy with where I am now. Well, what would it matter if I changed all that? If I still would want to be where I am right now.
That's pretty wonderful to hear. It's really great. Yeah. Do you have kids or are you thinking of having kids?
No, not for me.
Yeah. Do you want to say why?
Largely just because of race.
Huh. Wow. So race was why you weren't able to be that much of a kid when you were young? You think that's the main reason?
I think that's a lot of the reason. Even going back to the you have to be 2 times as good. I remember getting in trouble in kindergarten for talking. You're in kindergarten. Now I'm thinking, how do you expect kindergartners to sit all day in this structured classroom with these boring assignments? And also in kindergarten, I was on 5th grade reading level. I was already really bored. I'm
Were there
sorry.
not that many Black kids in your class, or were you the only one?
From kindergarten to 3rd grade, I did go to private schools with largely like other Black kids, but you're still ingrained in respectability politics. So here's how you're going to be a respectable Black person who will be accepted in society. So you can't play as much. You don't have recess. You have to learn how to be smart so people will respect you.
Wow. Wow. Huh. That just makes me wanna go back and say, okay, so your mom was a special education teacher and she still didn't see the signs. Do you think that the African American community still has some catching up to do to understand ADHD?
I think it's really community as a whole because I see kids that my mom works in a pretty diverse school. Since we moved to Georgia, the schools she's worked in has been more diverse. I think people are more likely to get diagnosed with ADHD if they're a problem in the classroom.
Yeah.
I think that's also why Black boys tend to get diagnosed more than Black women because they're already seen as a problem and then have some attention issues with it. You're too much of a problem to be in the classroom with everyone else. Being a Black woman, you learn to mask really well. There's a site called Embrace Autism, and I took the How Well Do You Mask a couple weeks ago. I'm like star student in masking
Oh, wow.
because you got to learn how to navigate these situations to be safe. And then you got to navigate the situation because you already feel like an outcast for whatever reason. Those are the ways you fit in.
Also because boys more often have the impulsive acting out, hyperactive, and you were diagnosed with inattentive ADHD. More girls seem to be like that, so it's sometimes harder to catch them, right? Yeah. Do you have a message that you'd wanna give for other Black women with ADHD?
I think really the biggest message is like, we do not have to succeed all the time. Find your purpose, find what's valuable to you, and do well at that. Let go of all of these other expectations or these other things that you feel you have to do.
That's a big ask, isn't it, when you talk about how society
It's a lifelong journey.
to challenge the world, right?
Yeah.
This has been wonderful. Did you want to add something about the LGBTQIA plus community?
I know we were talking about what are the things that are really important to me, and finding community with other queer people has been really important. But it's also been really funny because 3 of my closest friends that I met in college, we all found out after college that we have ADHD.
Wow.
We'd all be sitting there and they'd be complaining, "I can't get my schoolwork done," or "I can't focus," or "I just wish I could be better at this thing," or "I even feel bad because I talk too much and I feel like I cut other people off," or "I can't stay on topic." We were all sitting there and we're like, "I don't experience you that way." Later we learned it's because we all have ADHD. Understand, you don't take it personally when someone changes the topic. "Oh, you're relating to me." We have 5 conversations at once and we're all on the same page.
Yeah. I gravitate to people with ADHD too. You understand them so much better and vice versa. So that's your community that you were talking about in our emails. Like, that's a lot of support, isn't it? When people are going through the same thing. That's pretty cool.
I'm fortunate because I live in Atlanta, so you can, like, move through communities and find your people. I do think taking that risk to get to know people and getting them to know you has been one of the most valuable experiences for me. I met these people in a sorority. I'm not a sorority kind of girl, but I felt safe with them, and here we are, what is it, 13 years later, still hanging out, still super close, and also learning together, cheering each other on. We're like, "I just bought another laundry basket because I realized I don't have to sleep on my clothes. I can just have a clean basket and a dirty basket and not worry about it."
Ariyanna, you're wonderful.
Yeah,
I mean,
Thank you for having me. This has been fun.
it
Good.
really has been. Really
Yeah.
great to get to know you.
And I
Thanks.
learned about the importance of play. Adults, when we learn about our AD, we already feel we're behind in getting our careers started. They're so focused on improving myself and moving forward. That message of play is a new and a powerful one. Thank you.
Thank you. That makes me so happy.
All right, go have some fun.
Yeah. Y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye. I'm looking forward to interviewing you on a future show. Here at the Inattentive ADHD Coalition, we're making a library of videos of interviews with people with inattentive ADHD as they talk about their challenges and their successes. If you would like to be interviewed, please send your contact information to www.iadhd.org/awareness.
This has been a production of Inattentive ADHD Coalition. Check us out at iadhd.org and see how you can help us by donating or by spreading awareness about inattentive ADHD. Thank you.